So, disclaimer, we'll tell you that the ASX version of this is slightly improved compliance-wise because generously Canaccord shared some of their rare earth pricing information with us overnight, and I've incorporated that. So, my name's Beckton, Managing Director of PRS. We're also on Frankfurt, 1P80. We're an option on gold and silver in Slovakia, but also rare earths in Finland, two low-risk EU Schengen jurisdictions. Our wheelhouse mainly focuses on brownfields assets. We are not a large greenfields explorer. We're a very small but promising brownfields developer. These three paragraph headings here I borrowed from friends at Venture Capital in Vancouver, who in turn borrowed it from a legend in Rio Tinto and David Klinger. And James, my fellow Noosa local in the presentation just now, mentioned the size of the prize. That's something that all shareholders should look for in what is already a risky business. You need to see significant, not just significant upside, but multiple upside to what you're investing in. In this case, gold, which is every junior should have in his portfolio, because no one can control the price, and rare earths, which is being controlled, but by the EU, which is pleasing. You'll see that in a minute. Cost of the test, what the shareholders' funds go to, we'll talk about that in detail. Basically drilling and resource work. Some people are contributing to offset that cost for shareholders by way of non-dilutionary, i.e. they don't get shares for it, EU investment of late, approximately $700,000 Aussie. The first tranche will hit our accounts next month. Chances of success, and this is a speculative piece, we'll talk about that at the moment, but again, we're trying to reduce risk given that they're brownfields assets, which is what we deliberately focus on, and we deflect all incoming shots of other projects where the risks are too high, or what we deem the risks are. So when it goes to risk, it's about jurisdiction for us as well. We don't operate in areas where you can potentially lose the asset. Finland with a storied history of mining. Slovakia as well, long history of mining. Currently, both jurisdictions are EU, both Schengen, so it's easy to operate in both. Importantly, one takeaway is with the Finnish map, just if I can ask for your patience, there's a third-party rare earth processing facility just across the water in another EU jurisdiction in Estonia, so that goes to the business model for the rare earth asset. We don't pretend to try to become some kind of vertically integrated company. That's not what shareholders invest in us for. They invest in us in the past and present and hopefully future to define resources, and others will mine and process them. The EU, as I mentioned, probably relieved at the moment by the change in government because everything's about competition in life, and lately the United States, through their Inflation Reduction Act, has been outsizing all other sovereign investment in resources. That might taper off, which I guess it's a Trump trade in our case, that will benefit the EU, is the early speculative comment. I won't go through this verbatim. You get the fact that we're after a critical element in an area where most of the supply is currently, or was in the near past, from Russia. It's no longer available for obvious reasons. My view is also expose shareholders to commodities which are not just, as we have with gold and silver, but commodities that are in demand. We have mainly manufacturing facilities in Germany who are openly complaining about demand restrictions from China currently. So we're part of the solution to that problem, potentially. Obviously, we're not in production now, but the concept of near-term production is what we're working on, particularly for the rare earths, and the other elements are in our portfolio in Slovakia, which we'll refer to. We don't have gold and silver on these critical minerals list because they're not critical. Gold and silver are just profitable. And we have those in Slovakia as well. We will continue to advance those in parallel. I don't expect you to digest these numbers. Do so at your leisure on the ASX. The main thing is you look for it in rare earths with hard rock anyway. I don't want to cast aspersions on our soft rock and clay competitors whose grades are normally 1/10 of the grade that you're seeing here, or 1/20th, because we have smaller tonnages as well, so you're at a different part of the grade tonnage curve. When it comes to grade with hard rock rare earths, we don't also compare ourselves to Mount Weld in Western Australia or Mountain Pass in California, but what we do point out is we do have a soft rock resource at the tailings dam. We do have consistent moderate to high grade rare earths in stacked lenses, so this is about simplicity and a possible underground mining solution in what the project called Korsnäs, where I've just come back for, as John Levings, a fellow director here, in Österbotten on the west coast of Finland. So we like, again, to work, and it's been this way in my 30-year career, on brownfields, old mines, and extract more value from them, and this is exactly what's happening at the Korsnäs project. You can see thick intercepts and horizontal widths is what mining planning engineers care about, up to and including 20 metres horizontal width of over 1%, and in some cases over 2% rare earth, total rare earth oxide. Obviously, and we'll talk about the percentages of battery, the higher value rare earths, because as some people in the audience would know, not all rare earths are valuable. Importantly, again though, this is a drilled out job with over 470 drill holes completed by others. So for our shareholders, we drilled our maiden drill program recently of only 6 holes. That's dwarfed by the modern drilling that's been done and preserved that we've been continuously sampling since April last year. It was drilled by Outokumpu mainly, but state-owned enterprise. Finnish and again they had the wisdom of preserving all that core, so we'll talk about what that means for news flow for shareholders. I don't want to dwell too much on the detail, but there's 3 potential resource areas in the future. One of them near term, a hard rock resource. There's also a tailings dam that we drilled in February, and there's a lanthanide dump, because even though, and this is a key, I only remember one thing per presentation. The one thing to remember from this presentation is this project was a lead mine back in the 70s when they stopped production, and they were focused on lead. They knew the rare earths were there, and they quantified it. They even batch treated it, and they assayed for it in some cases, but generally they focused on lead, and when they didn't get lead in the core, they did not sample it. Which I don't judge. I've worked in Broken Hill, and if you didn't see the base metals, you didn't sample it. But every time we cut that core, we get high grade. Not every time, but mostly we get moderate to high grade rare earths. So therein lies the opportunity. This was a expensive government drill out of over 470 holes, and they didn't find any more lead beyond the mine, but had the wisdom to preserve that core in a library, which we've been mainly working at. Again, we keep getting high-grade rare earths every time we sample it, so this is going straight into a resource estimate. This is quite simplified geological overview. My fellow director, who's a far superior geologist in the audience, is probably choking on his breakfast, but I'm just trying to bring up the fact that there are parallel stacked lenses, completely open, and in one case, the mine trend, about 10% of it's drilled out, so most of the drilling has been exploration spacing to the west and to the east. The orange polygons you can see there, sorry, I just think I lasered someone in the audience, sorry about that. These lenses are what a rough, if you like, depiction of where the top of these books are, these lenses, and they're under, importantly, and therein lies the opportunity here, they're under about 5 metres of gravel. So that's why this thing wasn't picked over and worked on before. It's basically hidden apart from the drilling in the library in southern Finland. So that's why when people ask how did you come up with this, it's basically, it was already drilled out and found. So this is a very basic diagram, but it goes to the fact that there's defined zones, if you like. This is not assay related, this is geologically related, where you have these calcite zones, or carbonatite as the technical people call them, that host the rare earths. And you can see there's a cluster of information. Like any project, you always have data, you have an intense area of focus, and this is where they were in production for 7 years on lead. And of course, their effort towards the end of any mine life, there's always a late male effort to find more lead, but they kept finding more rare earths. And we're following up with that work. So these stacked lenses are important from a planning engineering point of view in terms of what's called tonnes per vertical metre. So again, risk reduction. We've recently sampled some of the near mine right in the old lead area zones, and we announced on Monday what are very important heavy rare earth spike in the main mine trend, and we're looking at also an area to the west which has a heavy rare earth zone. The dominant value rare earths are neodymium and praseodymium, but we'll follow that up, and we're completing a void model and all the normal things you do when you get towards resource. I'll ask for your patience. We've got about a 30-second video just to show the lack of competitive land use at this mine project. So I won't talk over the video too much, but basically you've got the mine area there which we're utilising at the moment for the core processing, the old shafts, closed shafts in Finland for obvious reasons in winter. And you've got the open pit where they had a box, what you would call a box cut in Western Australia, where they went underground after that. There's a drill rig in the middle distance from Arctic Drilling and Rovaniemi, who are also 9-year shareholders of the company. I've known since Chile days. In the background you can see it's just state forest, so we can drill almost anywhere we like. This is not a urban area. Access to the township of causes to see vehicles driving to the south, and we drilled recently to the south of that road, all with full landowner permission. Thank you to the organisers for making that video work. Alright, so this is a great slide that John Leving's put together recently. The company has already reported about 3,300, that's a bit higher now after Monday's release, assays. We've got the darker orange and red colours are either being cut or processed, so there's a lot more news flow to come from the drill core of the 471 holes that others drilled. We estimate that to be worth about 14 million Australian, which is above what our market cap is. So from shareholders' point of view, there's a lot more news flow to come from Finland. We do have, as I mentioned, Slovakian gold-silver projects. The closest analogy to these, the setting is exactly the same almost as the Emperor gold mine in Fiji. We have flat makes, and you have later high-grade epithermal systems. This is our normal project that we've worked on since our success, which is getting a bit in the past now at Bolnisi in Mexico. We like this style of deposit because they're easy to process. We surround an existing mine here at Rosalia, which makes about 10 million euros a year on only 20,000 ounces a year production. So we like this project. It's completely under-drilled, and we'll put more effort into that in the near future. Some metrics of the company's overall number of shares out. We are in the middle of an entitlement issue at the moment, and then a shortfall placement being managed by our good friends and principal sponsor here at Canaccord. I don't make comments about company value. That's up to the market. We just need to keep pushing out good results. The board, as I alluded to, in the interest of time, you can read that at your leisure, but it's a good mix of corporate and technical, including colleagues from 20 years ago in Mexico. As I mentioned, we're in the middle of an offer. It is underway at the moment. Visit our booth or the Canaccord booth if you want to discuss it. But it's an entitlement issue phase, and it's about to close as of Monday, and then we look at or next week, and then we look at the shortfall placement. Use of funds, which is a bit busy, basically drilling, resource. I have to put this in for compliance reasons. There won't be a test afterwards, don't worry. But basically it's all about news flow. This slide, thanks to the patience, or I should say generosity of our corporate advisor, Canaccord, talks about future pricing, which again, I won't dwell on. That was well covered yesterday by Reg Spencer. We also have a very bullish view on pricing, which is important when you have a moderate grade project, but being supported by the EU right now in terms of cash in the bank. Just to round out and complete the presentation, we are a small team, so it's all hands on deck. That's me processing core. I cut over 700 metres of core in August, and the drillers are certainly also very patient with their billing, etc. So we've basically focused on hardcore, hard-hitting information in terms of rare earths and gold, silver. And I encourage you to come to the booth afterwards, or if you're not here physically, to send a note of inquiry to PRS. Thank you.